Hello everybody, today we're going to talk about the macro toolbar in CorelDraw. I'm using X4, but it's going to be relatively the same on X5 and X6. This is the macro toolbar. Let me move it so you can see it. We got a Run Macro button, the macro editor, disable application events, record a macro, pause, and stop. If you don't have your macro toolbar positioned on your workspace, you can do so by going to Tools, Customization, choose Command Bars, and put a check mark in the one that says Macros. Click OK, and you can place it where you like. I like to put mine up here. Let's check out the features of it. Well, it's got play, so let's hit it. Play, and we'll see our projects here. Let's start with the bottom one. The name of it is VBA Project, and it's located in Graphic 1. All graphics that you save in CorelDraw are saved as a CDR file, and they have a built-in embedded macro. You can write some macro code and embed it in each document that you work with, and this is what this is right here. Let's talk about the next one, My Macro, and it's located in a local file on your computer. mymacro.gms is the name of the file, and it just happens to have the same name because I named it this as the name of the file, which I like to do. I like to give it the same name as the name of the file. Okay, and then we have some other macros. And let me show you where these are located. These are the default ones that come with CorelDraw. So we're just going to click cancel there. I'm going to close CorelDraw. Go to My Computer, C, Program Files, Corel, X4, and this will be the same in X5 and X6, relatively the same with your different operating systems. Sometimes you'll see like program files x86 if you're using the Win32-bit version on a 64-bit system. These two macros come with Draw. They're in the program files folder, and I don't recommend storing your macros in this folder because you're going to be editing them, saving them, and permissions issues with Windows XP, SP3, and above could happen if you store your GMS files here. So although it's okay to leave the default macros here, these are the ones that come with CorelDraw, the best place to put your macros are, let's go to Documents and Settings, XPM User, this will be your username, and in your Windows 7 and above, it's going to say like App Data instead of Application Data, and it'll say roaming before it gets, App Data, it'd go roaming, and then Corel. So we're just skipping that roaming folder. We're going to Corel, we'll go to X4, X5, X6 if you got it, Draw, GMS, and there's the one that I made, and I put it there. We could make another one, New Text Document, and I'll call it My Macro 2, and then we change the extension. Yes, change the extension. And if you don't know how to do this, I go in depth about creating a separate GMS file in another one of my videos, which you can also find on my page. Whenever you create a new GMS file, you have to restart Draw. Mine's already closed, so I'll start it up. Now, the next button on our macro toolbar, the macro editor, or you can press Alt F11, which I'll do. Brings up the macro editor. And we'll see some macros over here in our Project Explorer. First thing, we'll see our VBA project for Graphic 1. This is embedded in the current document. So if you close the document, this macro is not going to work. It only works when that document's open. I don't use this feature a lot unless you're passing files in the workplace that need certain macro code embedded in each document. Here's the one I made first before the video. And here's our new one. Look at that. There's the file. That's what it's called. And look what it's named. Global Macros. We don't want to call it Global Macros. So I'll just select it and go down here and change the name. And I'll call it My Macro. And I'll do it the same as the file. My Macros 2. And there it is. There's its new name. So if I click this to open it, we'll see it has nothing. I could right click, Insert, Module. And I could even select the module and give the module a name, GDG. We'll see a Corel X4 folder with a module in it. This macro storage is used for events, and that brings us to our next topic of the discussion, this button, Disable Application Events. Events are triggers, so to speak. So if I was in this is where we usually store events, by the way, in this macro storage. Don't ever use this for anything else besides events. You can put any regular code you want in this regular module here. If you find code on a forum and you want to try it out, create a module in your modules folder and put the code in there. So let's open up to this macro storage and let's select global macro storage, and you'll see some events over here. Document new, select it, it puts some code there. That would mean this code in between this subroutine right here would run anytime you open a new document. Let's try another one. Selection change. This one's pretty powerful and it runs a lot. Anytime you make any selection change in Draw, code between this is going to run. So I could run something in there. I could run a sub that's stored in this module here. So let's do that. Tab it over, and I'll call it my super sub. And that's all you got to put. Sometimes you'll see this, call, and then you'll have to use the brackets if you do that. Well, no you don't. But we'll just put that there, and then we'll go to our GDG module that I named, and we'll create a sub. And it's got to be a public sub, so don't use the private keyword. Private would mean it'd only be visible within this module. Public means it's visible within any module, or even a form. So we're just going to say sub, and the same name. Let me see if I can bring it up with the context of my super. No, of course not. You have to create it first. My super sub, capitalize that S, and it automatically adds the end section for it. And I'm just going to say Control J, active selection tab dot, and I'll go move, and it takes two arguments, X and Y. I want to move the active selection. Let's move it 2 inches to the right, and let's not move it anything up or down. And this will run because it's within this selection change event. It'll run every time I make a selection change. It's going to run this code. So you can imagine you have a pile of macros here. Like I do, I got a huge pile. And any event code is going to run with all those triggers. So if you just dump a pile of macros into CorelDraw, it could affect performance if you don't know where they're from, who wrote them, and what they're doing because of the event code. And basically that's what this button does. It allows you to disable the events. So let's try out our macro, and look at that. It moved it over. Because every time I make a selection change, it's running that code. No matter what I do, if I change the color, it's going to move it over. Any change. I can't even grab these. It's kind of fun. You could make a CorelDraw video game. But anyways, be careful with events. You'll get into trouble if you have a lot of events. They'll bog you down if you don't know who wrote them and what they're doing. So let's just be careful with using a lot of events. And if you want to disable the events, just press this button and look, they're disabled. The events don't work. Let's take a look at our next button. And I talked about this quite a bit in one of my previous videos. We made a recorded macro. So I'll press this, and it records a macro. It asks me what name do I want to give it and where do I want to put it. So I'll just leave it blank, macro 1, whatever, and we'll put it in my macro right here, and I'll click OK, and now it's recording. So if I actually had this window open, let's see, you'll see a module called recorded macros that it put in there, and look, it did all that. Well, let's see, this is the code that it did so far. And if I had another monitor, I could just leave that visible. Let's turn the events on and see if they get recorded. We'll see some code in there. It's still recording. Yep, it even recorded our events. So that's a quick way to make some macros using the record. Particularly, I really like to use record for saving. Like if you do a lot of saving, you're always publishing to PDF or whatever, record it in a macro, create a toolbar shortcut icon, and you can use that to quick save, because saving has a lot of options, and it's very handy to make a macro save for you if you can. And I went in depth about this on my previous videos, so be sure to check them out. Our last two buttons are pause and stop. This just basically stops your recording, and it's done. This is my recording. I can modify this as needed and use it for lots of tasks in CorelDraw. So I'm going to close out, and that's it. I hope you all enjoyed the video today, and have a good one.